Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Tin Pan Alley Cat, released in 1943. It's the 409th in the series and it's directed by Bob Clampett. It is the 9th in the infamous Censored 11 series. As such, there is no official release of this short. The print I'm using, the person is aware I'm using it, but he wishes to remain anonymous. In case you haven't seen this short before, as it is under copyright, so I can't show you the full thing here, but this cat decides to go on a night on the town and decides to go where the party's at. And after a musical sequence, he ends up going into a Porky Wacky Land scene, and that's pretty much it. So first up, you're going to hear a re-edit of the original audio commentary I did. Not only did WWII re-edit this, but he was actually with me that time and he completely forgot. After that, you'll hear some new thoughts from me, and then you'll hear from my good friend Huey Nelson from the Bob Clampett retrospective. So grab some popcorn and hopefully you'll enjoy this review.
This is like a really bad cop imitation of a Fleischer cartoon from the 30s.
And with me today is my good friend Blue Genocide. Say hi. The title itself, so basically Tin Pan Alley is the name given to New York City music publishers and songwriters that dominated the late 19th century and early 20th century. So that's where the name, Tin Pan Alley cats come from. And of course we've got cats. I mean, what do you think of the music there, Blue?
It's definitely one of the very few highlights of this cartoon. Like, I wasn't there for Coal Black, and what I had to say about that one, I left in the comments in that section, but to quickly reiterate, I basically felt that while it was trying to be progressive, it still unfortunately adhered to a lot of stereotypes at that time. This short is even worse. It's just... I mean, I told you what I thought of it as soon as I saw it for the first time. I think this is pretty bad.
The story of this one, whether it was intentional or not, is kind of like a remake of an earlier Censored 11 short, Sunday Go to Meeting Time, where pretty much, you had someone of color just, he's doing the quote-unquote wrong things, partying and playing music and all this sort of stuff in the city, and then he sees the light through some sort of a weird sequence involving some sort of a hell, and then goes to church, because that's what they all did.
I mean, it's a cheater cartoon. That's what this is. Like, they probably just made it to, because they wanted to spend a little bit more money, or they hemorrhaged some money or something from another cartoon.
We're now gonna go into the weirdest part of this cartoon, where Clampett copies himself, where basically he goes back to Wacky Land, which I was very surprised when I saw this cartoon for the first time. The interesting thing about Clampett taking Wacky Land and redoing it in colour like he is here, Frizz would later on do a Wacky Land remake called Dough for the Dodo, but he would actually take this section from this cartoon, because you'll see later on like a rubber band part, right, and that was not in the original Porky Wacky Land. So, very weird. Everyone's copying from everyone. So weird.
It's Wacky Land. The animation is great. It makes you wish you were watching Wacky Land.
Yeah, totally agree, which is, of course, a masterpiece. And, of course, World War II references, because if we don't have enough racial stereotypes, hey, we've got the worst Japanese stereotype I've ever seen right there. And yeah, of course. As we wind up, I mean, I pretty much already know what you're going to say about this short. Did you want to say any final thoughts?
Not unless I'll make a big fart noise.
And now for some new thoughts here and some further information. So, I figured this is the best place to discuss the main character, who is a caricature of Fats Waller, because while this is not the first time he's been caricatured in Warner Brothers, and he was in a few Censored 11 shorts as well, I figure here, since he's so prominent, this will be the best spot. So you have Fats Waller. He was an American jazz pianist, organist, composer. He was an entertainer, and a lot of the music he did actually had a big basis on the modern jazz piano. He's perhaps best known in terms of his compositions, of which he did many, many compositions, Ain't Misbehavin' and Honeysuckle Rose, both of which have had many different renditions over the years. What's really interesting is that this short came out in 1943, and towards the end of 1943, on December 15 specifically, Fats Waller actually passed away from pneumonia. This is why after this short, you don't really see any caricatures in Warner Brothers. I can't speak for the other studios, but that would be the reason why. Now with this short, after the short Coal Black, this was basically a follow-up for Clampett, and Eddie Beale, who helped with the music on that first short, came back to help with this one, and it was him that supplied the musicians, including the person who did the voice of the Fats Waller cat here, named Harlan C. Evans, and I will say his voice is excellent. So this is not only a cheetah cartoon because it reuses Porky and Wacky Land, but this also reuses September in the Rain, which is a 1937 Freeze Freeling cartoon. So you got the section called Nagasaki, which is usually cut for television, and it's been repurposed for this short here. I will say, despite the fact that it's a cheetah portion of this short, I love the music. In fact, I love this song specifically. It's full of energy. If you're going to reuse something, it might as well be this. So a few World War II references. You have Hitler on the right and you have Hideki Tojo, as Germany and Japan were in cahoots together during the war as part of the Axis powers. Then you've also got Joseph Stalin, who at this point in time, Germany had tried to invade Russia. They failed due to the harsh winters, and then of course Russia entered the war and they ended up helping out. And yes, I am oversimplifying things, of course, but that's essentially what happened, and that's why you're seeing there Joseph Stalin, well, kicking Hitler's butt. So the right mission that you see there is a play on Uncle Tom's Cabin. I've already discussed that book in a previous Censored 11 review, specifically Uncle Tom's Bungalow. The left one, the Kit Kat Club, well, can't really find anything about that except for its initials. It's clearly a tribute to a lot of the black musicians at the time, which he himself has said he enjoyed. And the music in this cartoon is fantastic, and some of the visuals are pretty good, but it does also come across as a very lazy cartoon, and of course you got your stereotypes aside.
Alright, so Tin Pan Alley Cats, obviously, it's part of the Censored 11, there's a ton of baggage behind it, and, I'll let Huey elaborate on it more. But I will say that in the 100 Greatest Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies book, this cartoon is part of that list. I don't know why. Because even though in the first Bob Clampett retrospective, I thought I was going to get hit in the face with a ton of, pies and Rotten Tomatoes for saying that I wasn't the biggest fan of Porky and Wacky Land, which elements of this cartoon is based off of. I don't think that this cartoon belongs on this list. Not because of the stereotyping. I mean, there are elements, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Coal Black, there are elements that have it deserves to be on that list for reasons. But this one, I don't think it's quite up there. There are other cartoons that I think should be on this list. Case of the Stuttering Pig in particular. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't deserve the hype that I think some people give it. Take it away, Huey.
I kind of agree with that. The stereotypes here kind of just seems like they throw in the obligatory black people love chicken. I mean, who doesn't love chicken? Then you have manly looking black women. I don't know what it is. They seem to just constantly go back and forth with when it comes to black women. It's either they make them hypersexualized or just manly looking and fat for some reason. And then there's the whole Kit Kat Club, which is pronounced KKK. But history did show the KKK was around during even earlier. It started in the 20s, so it was around during this time. It kind of just it doesn't really sit right with me at that is even there. It's like, okay, I get it, you're trying to put in the African Americans, but if they went in the theaters and watched this, some of them were not even laughing. I think the NAACP, they kind of hated a lot of these stereotyped cartoons because they were not portraying them correctly. If the voice actors seen how they were being drawn, they probably would have just turned the other cheek and said, nope, I'm not doing this. That the recording is just for the recording, but they're not really seeing how the designs are gonna look. Because if black people back then were not laughing, I think if this came out now, they sure as heck won't even be laughing.
Okay, so This short is in the top 100 Looney Tunes book, as mentioned by Manny earlier on there, and it's also in the book along with Cold Black, and this one's been cited by many historians as one of the greatest cartoons ever made, despite some of the imagery. But unlike Cold Black, which I can sort of kind of hear arguments for that one being on such a list, although it should actually be on a list of most important Looney Tunes rather than the greatest Looney Tunes, but I digress. I really don't get the love for this short. I really, really don't. Now, the positives of this short, much like with Cold Black, it's the music and the animation, and again, like Cold Black, the music is the better of the two, even if that part of it is kind of a repeat from an early cartoon, which itself was a cheetah cartoon. I guess part of my issue with the praise of this short is that it's a cheetah short. Now, I'm not blaming Clampett for doing cheetah shorts or anything like that. He was making all these amazing shorts, and there were bound to be some cost overruns on some of those shorts, so doing the cheetah shorts, that's actually a great way to keep the books balanced, And audiences wouldn't have noticed anyway, because they wouldn't have watched these shorts one after another like we can today, so it's a win-win as far as the studios were concerned. If you hadn't seen the cartoons that had elements from other shorts taken for this particular short, your takeaway would be probably, it's problematic in parts, but it's a wild musical journey where our main character gets so into the music that he goes on a trip and it just becomes this crazy short. But because Wacky Land is such an amazing, iconic short, I just can't help but think of that cartoon and wanting to watch that cartoon instead of watching this one. Of course, I have issues with some of the designs of the black characters looking less than human, including a repeating of the dodo from Wacky Land. I mean, that was just awful. And given the time that this was made, I can look past certain things, like the stereotype of black women are either slim and fast, along with being a lighter skin tone, or older and overweight, or how African Americans are obsessed with gambling and music, the fast life, and that sort of thing, or are about going to church. It's, one or the other. Not to mention that this also shows one scene about the stereotype of African Americans only wanting to eat chicken, and then you got a watermelon in the background of this version of what it took from Wacky Land. So, yeah, this one, I just can't overlook the fact that it's a cheetah short, and I just don't enjoy this one at all. So this one gets a 5 out of 10, and it's solely for the music sequence in the middle. It's full of energy, but otherwise, it's quite forgettable, and it just makes me want to watch Porky and Wacky Land. So that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.
Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. What's